Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Regenerative Business with Sam Garcia. This is Sam Garcia with two special guests today, and we're talking about something fun. I'll let them explain, but today I have TJ Matton and Bailey Jacobs from the Play Revolution. And we're coming on to really dig into you as the entrepreneur, especially if you're a solopreneur, and the potential for bringing play into your life, into your business, and how that can actually, you both are about to hate the words I'm about to say. I can feel it, but how can solve a lot of problems that are popping up in your business. Are we nodding because we hate it, or are we nodding because we
No,
don't mind it?
I
No, it came
literally
up
I
in a
said
totally in a culture work
to
for us
TJ
today.
today. I was like, you know what? We just need to put that to everyone that play will solve all your problems. Yeah,
And I
Wait,
was like,
okay.
well,
On that note, what problems will it solve while we're here?
play is, I think the first thing to learn is one, you are probably coming in with a very loaded definition or concept of play in your head, right? Most people, when we bring up play, they jump to images of children. They jump
Mhm.
to images of frivolousness, of a clown, of loud, boisterous, joking. That's not play, right? Or playing a sport, right?
Mhm.
None of that is necessarily play because play is actually an internal experience. It's engaging with something for your enjoyment. And the thing is that there's a couple pieces to that, right? One, no one knows if you're playing except for you, right? It's an internal felt experience of your joy. And the other part of that means that it could be everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Engagement for your enjoyment means you can find play is not constrained to a hobby. It's not constrained to a sport. It's not constrained to children. It is something that when you bring intention to it, that intentional orientation towards joy every day, it's something that you can cultivate and build and all of a sudden bring everywhere and has a power. When we say shift all your problems, it has the power to shift your mindset in a way that,
yeah,
in play, problems aren't black and white, not good or bad things. There are things to explore. There are things to tinker with. There are challenges to be met. And
yeah,
so even just thinking about that reframing of like when you cultivate play, when you face a problem, of all your problems could be solved through play, they're not actually problems necessarily, right?
yeah.
They're opportunities when to solve something, to play, to tinker, to get your hands dirty, to fix. It's this massive shift in your brain to change how you view the whole world.
And I would also say, like, in the idea of like play can solve all your problems, a lot of our culture is based on like kind of frameworks of being told we have problems. Like, you have a problem with this, you have a problem with that, you have a problem with this. And we lose our internal voice around what our own problems are, right? Where we feel actually inspired into being change makers,
Mhm.
good troublemakers, creating, right? And where there is this kind of reclaiming of problems that are value aligned, where you get to cultivate your sense of what matters to you, like what problems come to you. So, like, oftentimes Bailey and I come to play in really different ways. Like, my background is as a clinical therapist and learning play in that framework. And oftentimes my first questions to people is they're coming in with some sort of problem. And I'm like, how did you come to understand that this was a problem? Like, how did you come to understand that this was a problem? And they're like, oh, my husband really has an issue with it. Or I've always been told I'm controlling. I was like, okay, what's your experience of that problem? Because we're so coded with expectations based language, performative based language, perfectionist based language that we've lost our sense of voice, that like problems we're meant to feel engaged, right?
This is reminding me, I think this is based off of a book that I did not read, but I heard someone last year talking about how with life, the only way to leave the game of life is to die. And if we could actually bring business and our experience of business into this, like the longest game that you're going to play versus something
Hmm.
you're trying to win. And like, I
Hmm.
feel like this really like connects in with all the play talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so from like a gaming research in various ways, right? The gaming research, there's infinite and finite games, right? There's
Infinite.
a book called The
Mhm.
Infinite Game of Life. or the infant game of tennis. There is also open and closed loop play practices, right? The play that just keeps on going, that gets personally cultivated. And also, one of the things that happens with play is it always ends, right? There's this practice of learning to let things die. There's a surrendering practice that cultivates new, like something new. It has this kind of wave of like between the two experiences of letting things go.
So good. So one of the things that I learned from you guys that I'm going to totally butcher, but in my head, this is how I remember it. But how in the as most people listening here have some sort of spiritual connection and of many different flavors, but we all know that meditation is good. We all know that mindfulness is something that we need to be cultivating in our lives. But what I learned from you two was this idea that play is almost this, not opposite, but this side of the mindfulness puzzle that no one is talking about and that solves a lot of problems, like we've been saying. And it really can, where mindfulness and, or meditation, I should say, this like still mindfulness, the still side of mindfulness, how that can bring us down and learn us how to bring our nervous system and our state down, where play can actually help us be in this active state and turn what's usually a like this stress, which is this active state, into a play state. And how bad did I butcher that?
I think you did a great job.
Okay,
You did a
great.
great job. That means
A
something
plus,
in our
thank you.
messaging is getting clear.
Yeah, I think it's when we talk about mindfulness, typically we're talking about meditation, breath work, right? In the modern concept of it. And it's really missing half the equation, right? Because we are bodies that don't just need to calm down. We need to express ourselves. We need to move, right? Even when we're meditating, I love this that TJ says, it's like even when we're meditating, our bodies are still in motion, right? Our lungs are moving, our muscles are moving. And by only trying to come down, you're not actually learning how to regulate in a way that makes you flexible, that makes your nervous system amenable to stressors or change, right? Because we're not actually practicing the other pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I think to even to further poke that, even the concept of stillness, right? Like stillness is actually an internal experience. It's not a finite experience because there is no such thing as stillness until death, right? So even as we're being pressured into finding stillness, finding quietness, right? Like how much that kind of can, in many ways, re-trigger performative behaviors, like good girl behavior, right? Don't raise your hand if you need to talk, right? I'll tell you when it's time to take a bathroom break. Like how many people don't just leave their yoga classes because they have to pee, right?
Or don't do a
Like
move slightly differently because the
because
teacher
they're
told
uncomfortable.
yeah, because they're worried other people will judge them or something, right?
Yeah, and so this concept of stillness becomes a kind of can feel performative, can feel pressure driven, right? And not that there's not work to be done in creating space, but much also one of the things that like got me into this was that like mindfulness is often a relief from pretty horrific pressures, like pretty horrific systems, right? And that's not actually where growth occurs, right? That's a place of relief from toxic stress culture. And that's not actually where we become change makers, right? It's theoretically that should be a place where there's so much there's space, you get enough space where you get angry. You get enough space where you become sad. You get enough space where you start to cultivate action again in your being that says go this way, move this way, where you hear your voice again, right? And oftentimes when like I was left in meditation or mindfulness programs being left like, okay, what do I do now? They're like, just breathe. I was like, no, no, what do I do now? And that's actually the cultivation of the play drive, that part that wants to create, wants to do something, wants to engage in an aliveness experience. And we don't have classes or like a mindfulness culture that facilitates that, where you're doing yoga that's pounding on the ground, or you're trading yoga mats with other people. So no, stay exactly in your yoga mat. Don't touch other people's. That's yours. Again, that kind of very internalized good behavior practices when really we need to be teaching people bad behaviors.
So
I've
I
had a
think
burp and fart in class.
I think also many, I hope listeners, as we're talking, are possibly thinking of times that they did lose themselves in an exercise class, or were on a hike
Hmm.
and just felt very present and dropped into their surroundings, or maybe they would describe it as like a flow state, right? Flow state has been a little co-opted by the productivity movement, right? And so that's a whole other can of worms that we don't need to touch, but it is that feeling of being like, well, not touch right now. We can go back to it.
I am gonna touch it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
take
we're
it
gonna
right
touch it.
off that burner.
Um,
Go ahead and do this. I'm taking it
Tell her
right
she
off the
can't do
burner.
it. Tell her she can't do it.
it's invisible rule. You can't do it. But it's that feeling of being fully present in a moment, of being focused, intrigued, curious, but orienting that with for the purpose of your joy. I think also in people we've worked with, people in our community will say things back to us. I don't have time for joy. I don't have my, that seems like the world is on fire. Like, why would I focus on my joy? But that's what we're unlocking here, right? Is the joy as this as your superpower, as your resistance, as your way to survive in this hellscape. And play is your portal to do that, right? Play is that state where you are present and aligned in the world, and you are oriented towards joy, and you are feeling the internal experience of your joy.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that, like when people respond with, "Oh, I don't have time to play." Tell me more about where you learned that. Like, when did you learn that your experience and your time didn't matter?
And your experience of joy didn't matter, and what did it matter less than?
Uh-huh. And it's always productivity, right? Like you can play when your work is done, right? Like when did you learn that play came second? Like when
That
did
your
you learn that your body came second?
and that your
And
joy
it,
came second, right?
yeah,
That your joy was secondary to others or tasks.
yeah. And this is where I will come right back to that flow and play, where like the research is really unclear whether they're different, right?
Mm.
But the research is very unclear if and how they are different. But there's been a lot more funding for flow state because it has been seen as more, you get more productivity out of it,
It's a
right?
tool.
So there's been more research, there's been more funding, there's been more brain scanning and around the flow state than the play state because play doesn't necessarily have that prove it,
Mm.
right? Play really embraces the importance of nonlinear play, infinite play, play that doesn't take you somewhere, where flow has been very much hijacked by productivity culture, but where there's output related. But it's very unclear in the research whether they're actually different. It's more so that they're different like slightly different philosophical frameworks.
Okay, I'm gonna offer two different directions, and you can choose which one to go in because both I'm
Oh,
like,
I love it. Choose your own adventure.
What did we choose?
and I want to go into productivity versus play culture, but I'm also like super newbie question because I know flow
Yeah.
state, I know the feeling of flow state, but I'm like, I feel like it's common knowledge what the brain activity of flow state is, but I actually don't know what it is, and I feel like you do. So that's my choose your own adventure.
We can, TJ, do you have an answer for that?
I think that we could probably answer them in a little bit of cohesion together. What exactly is the play state? And like how you would know you're in a play state and play culture within self and within business. And we can also talk about what that is from a brain and body standpoint, also, like how you can cultivate those states very purposefully.
Mm.
Yeah. Is that where you're going, Bailey?
I was gonna go to you because the neuroscience goes to you.
Let me start with just a little bit of basic brain
Yeah,
body
that's what I want.
science about play. Play is a homeostatically driven drive, which is means that it is automatically regulated and needed within the body, like sleep, hunger, and thirst. So similarly, you're either play deprived or you're play nourished, right? And so if you're not actively tending to play culture in your body, you're going to be play deprived. And
And
the same,
science supports that.
yes.
That's so cool. And it
Right.
calls it
So
play, or does it call it something else?
no, it's called play.
Ah.
It's I will butcher this guy's last name. John Panikasep. It's a very Dutch last name. And he talks about like the seven emotional drives within the body,
Mm.
which are like seeking rage, grief. Rage is renamed as grief. And play is one of them. Play is one of our primary emotive drives. And then it's also a primary mammalian drive because it is how we build new neural pathways. It's how we learn new things. It's the practice of tinkering. It's the practice of social bonding, right? So it's both the practice of wondering and wandering, and then like creative testing. And it is the practice of evolution, really. Um, and because our nervous systems are not built, they don't care whether we're happy, they don't care whether we're satisfied, they care whether we're safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our nervous systems are built solely for safety, right? So you think about that almost as a downward energy, right? Just be safe, right? And play is like, go create a world, go out into the world, which is like risky, right? And play from a framework, like from a body framework, is risk taking, right? It's purposeful risk taking, where you're just safe enough because again, your nervous system doesn't care whether you're happy, it just cares whether you're safe. And so you have to create this different style of framework of, oh, it's safe enough for me to move into this risk space. And in a world where we have really dehumanized our bodies and we've been like very machinized like into the world, it is a risk to just do something from joy, to center joy, even to center rest. There's a difference between resting and sleeping, right? And so, and really beginning to cultivate risk taking and growth and evolution again in that place of like play is going to solve problems because like play is a practice of evolving and tinkering and deconstructing things and reconstructing them in your personhood, in our communities, in our families, in our culture. And so from on a biological framework, like you have to tend to your play or you will be play deprived. And it will look like anxiety because anxiety is a form of meaning making and storytelling. Where if you're not giving yourself meaning making and storytelling elsewhere, your brain's going to pick up more anxiety behaviors. If you're
So
not
that's like
practicing,
the mental loop of worrying. It's
mhm,
like,
Yeah.
okay, love it.
Well, and our
yeah,
brains
Hate it.
desperately want to engage in our surroundings, right? Our
yeah,
brains are these beautiful, powerful machines, right? And if we don't give them outlets through play, so creativity, expression, movement, things that allow our brain to engage in its surroundings and its world, it's going to find other paths. It's
yes,
going to find other things to focus on. And TJ was about to rattle off a big list that
no,
don't
it's
feel
fair.
good.
Yeah, no. And again, if we look at creativity, right, these are people who can rage clean because what they're doing is they're creating new senses of space, right? But like you don't need to go into rage to create a more peaceful and fluid and flowing environment, right? People who are really controlling, right, and have that panicky feel in their body, right? Like often what that does is that spurs action, right? Or it can spur shutdown, right? Depending on the person and like where they are. But you don't, and so it's again cultivating this place of like, I don't need permission to make a plan and explore executing it, right? Like my engagement is not hindered on my suffering. Like, and we often use this place of losing our shit, like getting so far into a spiral of our own suffering before our bodies find permission to make change or to do something that feels interesting or satisfying.
Hmm.
And so this circumvents that like like that concept of holding our bodies hostage, like this culture that holds our bodies hostage into sort of survival energy and saying not everything is a bear, right? But if you don't have places where you're going exploring for the bears, you're going to look for bears because it's a path towards engagement. Because stress is very engaging,
Mm-hmm.
fear is very engaging, right?
Anger,
And so
yeah.
anger is very engaging, and our bodies want and need to engage in things that mean something to us. And so it's going to find ways to do that if we don't have a path in a different direction than our survival system that is engaging to it.
So I'm like, from you just mentioning the anger thing, I'm thinking of my husband because
Yeah.
he grew up surfing, went professional. So it was like a huge part of his life, core part of his life for a long time. And it's become very backseat since the Lahaina fires. And it is something where I see it. You see the difference in him of like when he goes
Absolutely.
surfing, like even just once a week, he's a different person and like the versus like finding things to get angry about. There's a lot to get angry about in the world.
There
Absolutely.
is. It's so
Absolutely.
easy.
Absolutely.
It's so
Absolutely.
easy and also just like righteous, right? There's
Yeah.
reasons to be for us to be angry, right? But it's that
Absolutely.
like
We should
it's
all be angry.
Yeah.
right.
Everybody, I don't trust people who aren't angry right now.
But it's also we can't only live there,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
deserve our joy. Your joy matters, your husband's joy matters, and like all of our in that's our humanity and our humanness, right? And so if
And
we're
how much of life would be changed if you weren't so angry about fucking laundry?
the
And like
latest
you could
headline.
move,
Yeah.
yeah, if you could move through the stresses with more abundance because and more curiosity, more flexibility, like if your personal body was unbothered almost by the everyday stresses because you have a very abundant play practice, right? Because play, again, it begins to help you realize laundry is not an actual real problem at the end of the day, right? But it is because we need something to engage in.
Mm.
So when we learn to joyfully engage in like stupid stuff like laundry or the dishes or like grocery shopping, things that we're doing on a regular basis, when we learn to joyfully engage in those things or these small problems that aren't real, like quote unquote real problems, we begin to resource our bodies and our communities to actually fight the real problems like fascism.
Ugh. So two things that I want to take from here because you like dropped this line before we started recording and I like want to hear more about it of play as a way to digest stress. And the other one is I'm thinking of someone comes to mind in my life who is like all of the symptoms that you had mentioned of symptoms of malnourished or undernourished in play. But this person also has a chronic illness. So I'm imagining that some people have that come up when they hear, but I have a chronic illness. How could I play?
I'm really glad you're asking about that. And I want to make sure that we answer that. But I guess we can talk about stress a little bit, but also do we want to circle back to play culture within a business
Oh
to
yeah, I
figure out?
want this too. There's just so many good directions.
So I kind of love when Bailey talks about this because she does come from a more business background. Like my work has always been one-on-one with individual clients. And I love the way that Bailey's work and history in business brings like such a different vantage point to the way business
Yeah.
might be.
Because I came from a corporate comms background, working in climbing up a little ladder for about 15 years. And then around the COVID time, I decided to try solo entrepreneurship. Around the COVID time, it all fell apart, right? And I was left in this place of needing to reorient around. I needed some new identity, right? I needed a new kind of, we all went through massive shifts during that time, right? It was impossible not to question everything in your world. But when TJ came to me and told me her vision of the Playful Revolution, it was like this light of, oh, all of a sudden the joy that I was feeling had a purpose and I could and the understanding that I could actually orient towards it. But in practice, like in the 2 years we've been working together, it's been a massive unlearning time for me, right?
Mm.
Because that 10 plus years of being in an office setting around productivity culture, around the idea of my time and what is quote unquote worth my time or what we are steering towards, those are, I'm putting air quotes around all of that for people who are listening. it there was so much of just learned shit in that, right? And play being this practice of tinkering and saying what if meant that TJ always comes as a partner and just to gently challenge when like I would all of a sudden get stuck in these ideas that were like not working enough hours or we're not doing X, right? She'd be like, what is that? Why are we, what do you mean? Or we can't create
According
that
to
if it's not
who?
according to who, right? We created something and it didn't go anywhere. And she's okay, but did you enjoy making it? What was your what was in like regrounding to that internal experience and the how much that matters, like your internal experience for your own growth, for your own purpose. It's been this whole enlightening process. And so much of it always just comes up against what was put on me, on what is productive, what my worth is, what my identity is as a quote unquote entrepreneur, right? Or a worker or whatever the fuck, right? All of those are the pieces that don't matter, right? But by being attuned to my experience of joy, I can better navigate and slough off, throw away those pieces that like those voices that tell me. Like now when I hear those voices, I heard those voices this morning, but like in my head I'm like, wait a minute, that's not really me. That's what's my actual internal experience that I'm feeling in this moment, and what can I ground into that is or like to orient me as opposed to using other people's voices, right? Using capitalism's voice to orient me instead, which is what had been guiding for 10 plus years, right?
Yeah, and I think when we talk about like shifting from productivity to play culture, this is about really shifting, like noticing the invisible rules, the
Mhm.
invisible expectations, the deadlines, and noticing whether you're the creator of those or whether somebody who loves you and knows you is a creator of those, right? Because most of those were created by dehumanizing systems. And so it's a lot of reclaiming a play culture is really creating about reclaiming that more infinite like framework that we want to be meaningful contributors to our life, right? When we think about like historically, we all like most of us did things that mattered in our tribes. Like we brought like our gifts were used in our communities, right? Like I as and was probably not used as like the grocery store person. I was not like the person organizing the food in our because that's not my strength, organization and like systems stuff. But I was doing something else that was like more exploratory, more hands-on, more kinetic, things that are really been like more human oriented because those are places where my aliveness comes to life and I feel meaningful contribution. And so understanding that like we want to feel meaningful to our communities. We want to feel this is what cultivates belonging is like one, just the full stop, you belong. But two, when we act from this place of generative love, right? Like being a good sort of community member, like that generates more of our sense of belonging. And so this understanding of moving from productivity culture where in some ways there's a separation of self and meaning to then blending these back together, right? Where like actually meaning making is part of humanness and it doesn't all have to be done within the work framework. What feels meaningful to you and beginning to cultivate again that path towards what's a problem that matters to you. Where do you want to tinker? Where do you want to bring your world into? And undoing some of these invisible loads and rules and frameworks that were really about conditioning, about social conditioning.
Making us good workers, making us good consumers.
Well, I remember hearing years ago this that they measured happiness in times of war versus outside of times of war, like real war, like not
Mm-hmm.
us in the US watching war happen that we cause. And people are happier during
Yes.
times of war because everyone has a purpose within the community within society. And it sounds like with play, or this is an option that you can actually take on intentionally of what is my purpose in this community, because that will actually make you happier.
Yes. And I think also interestingly, one of the things that spurred me into talking about play in a more public way was COVID. Because during COVID, I was like, oh my God, everybody's fucking playing all of a sudden. Because people were forced into stuckness, one, and this is obviously not universal because everybody's no, this is wasn't COVID was not a monolithic experience, but people were forced into stuckness, which when a traumatized nervous system and a play nervous system are actually in contrast of each other because they are both the states within the body and mind that hold uncertainty, right? So when you're in war, when you're in a state of trauma, you're really oriented towards like high risk uncertainties, right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And we have taught, and again, in this kind of mindfulness culture, to shift towards safety, towards stillness as the state of a quote unquote healthy nervous system or a better nervous system. But actually, play is that place where you learn to hold uncertainty. Like, what is going to happen? I don't know. right? It holds that I don't know what's going to happen. There's no way for me to know what's going to happen, but it shifts it from a fear state in a survival state into a curiosity state. Versus once you get through play, once you get through a play state, you find that place of more stillness, that more sense of rest, right? But in order to get to those places of stillness and rest and peace, you actually have to move through and hold the state of uncertainty without the nervous system collapsing into the fight or flight or the freeze or the survival state. And when we were in COVID, all of a sudden I saw this massive cultural emergence of play, right? Where we were driven into both be in isolation, but also care about your community. And you just saw people like, what do I do now that I can't go do the things? And people started creating. They started doing arts and crafts again. They started going into nature again. They started cultivating this playfulness that is very akin to what happens when the body is in freeze. But it has the energy of the fight or flight, but it can't. So you're stuck. You've got that energy of the fight or flight. That's, I want to get out of this, but you can't. I want to fight it, but I can't. But I also don't want to collapse. And so play is actually the utilized energy of the fight or flight into a more creative and resourced space. And I was like so intrigued by this reemergence of play within our like greater culture that I had already been doing for many years on my own and in clinical work, but then now seeing it very globally.
And TJ, I don't know if you want to jump on to share a bit about how you're teaching now, we're teaching now, the actually being intentional about using play to digest stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
COVID was a byproduct, right? But like actually teaching the framework where like you can, when you realize a stressor is coming or when you are in the middle of a stressor, you can actually engage in play to help you cycle through and process that stress as opposed to repressing it or it exploding out of you through rage.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you're a business owner and you're in the middle of an online launch, which is really triggering you and stressful, then you can intentionally use play at that time.
Yeah, because play is a stress digestion. Like it's an alchemy practice. And so one of the things is that we talked a little bit about this is that we've actually been very taught to ignore small stressors and wait until stress is really high before we listen to the body, right? So it's very common, for instance, for again, like people to not leave a yoga class to go to the bathroom, right? To hold it, right? Or, and we learn this in school, right? You have to wait until lunch to eat, but you're like, but I'm hungry now, right? So you learn to
handle and
ignore
raise the
cues.
capacity of stressors that you can handle.
Yeah. So then the body it almost waits for your body to produce stress at an 8 or a 9 or a 10 before you listen to it.
Wow.
And so play actually circumvents that and is like, how can I notice, like, how can I start responding to stress at a 1, 2, and 3 as a very purposeful practice so that it doesn't build up in the body, right? Like it's kind of stress snacks throughout the day and play snacking throughout the day, right? So like one of the things, like when people come to a session with me, like the very first thing I do is a stress snack, right? Because it takes effort to get to a session,
Can we,
right?
can we do a stress snack? Right.
Oh, totally,
What
totally.
I want a stress snack.
So like if you just were like, saying that like it takes effort to be like present here together, right? And like how are you noticing the pressure of attention or the pressure of what's next, the pressure of what you brought in, noticing where is the body aware of the world that pushed it here is pulling it next and is in the effort of attention. Like, how does that live in either the mind? Is the mind thinking about to-do lists? Is it distracted? Noticing if it's in the heart, thinking about what you wish you could be doing, things that were unfinished, or noticing whether it's in the body, just feeling a little antsy. One, just noticing what's it like to just be in this moment, the stress of this moment. And then allowing your body to do literally whatever it wants. Right? This is a very challenging, right? This is a very challenging prompt for many people because we don't get a lot of permission to just do whatever the fuck you want, right? And so just noticing, does it want to just move around a little bit, right? I'm like, shift my body. Uh, if the goal becomes of the stress snack to like feel a little bit easier in the body, to enjoy the convo a little more, to engage in it with a little bit more openness, like for there to be more air and space for one another, right? Is there anything from the to-do list that needs to be written down so it's no longer held by your body? Is there anybody that you want to that's in like a moment of suffering in your life that you want to send like beautiful energy to and be like, I'll be with you again in a few minutes when I'm done with my podcast? Is there anything in the body that needs to shift again in like that movement and that spatial awareness in
For
a way
people
that,
listening, we are all moving right now.
yeah,
And I hope you have the freedom. You don't feel an invisible rule stopping you from moving right now.
yeah. And I hope that as you as a listener, like if you, I hope that there was a part of you that kind of felt into that, doing whatever you want and like pausing this podcast right here. Look around, right? It's really it's a huge, powerful somatic practice to look over your shoulders, over the left and the right shoulder. And so just like noticing here as we return together, what feels different. The dog feels happier.
Was right over your shoulder was your puppy.
So cute.
I just realized how much tension I was holding in my shoulders to be quote unquote paying attention, right?
Yeah.
To be active listening, right? And that like how much I was holding myself upright to perform listening, right? But like in reality, that's an invisible rule. In reality, you guys know I'm listening. You guys know I'm here. Why do I need to perform and that I'm listening with my body, right? Why do I need to upright with my shoulders square and not show you that what I'm fidgeting with my hands, right?
Or
On
if
the
you stopped
table.
listening, if you got distracted and you're like, wait, I'm sorry. What did you say? I totally missed you. What the fuck is wrong with that?
I'm
Yeah.
just realizing when I like, because I had muted because there was like a helicopter above, but I also used that opportunity to grab my shirt, my long sleeve shirt to put on because I was cold, and I was like, there's a part of me that was like, I shouldn't do this right now. It's
Right?
ridiculous.
And again, in that place of like permission, like play is this place of permission to tend to the
Mm.
systems, right? Like how much more present you are with us now that you're more comfortable.
That you're not cold. Yeah.
Is this why, or is this a part of the reason why dance is like that? There was that study that came out a few years ago
Yes.
that dance is by
Nothing.
far the best medicine for depression,
Mhm.
leaps and bounds above drugs, above exercise. Is it play a part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Movement is one of the fastest ways to change your state.
Mhm.
And and I think, yeah, movement's one of the fastest ways to change your state. And again, this is what's so interesting, right? Oh my gosh, I can we talk about dance, Bailey?
Of
I
course
want
we
to talk about dance.
Okay. So this is so great because Bailey and I both love to dance, but we come to
Me
dance and
too.
really okay, great. What kind like if you were to tell me about the dance you love, like how would you language it?
I love, okay, a part of the dance I love is learning something and being, it's like the engagement of the mind to like, and then
Mhm.
like the connection with the body
Mhm.
Yeah.
is like one of my favorite ways.
So like a
And
choreography.
Hmm.
Yes,
I
yes,
love
that
it.
is
so
that's
same
me.
same with
If
Bailey.
you can't guess, that's me too. I love the pattern and like the patterning of the brain. Almost love the movements allows my brain to drop and be quiet and just flow into feeling the expression of the movement.
It like
Um,
triggers like obsession in my mind, which I have a
Yep.
very positive association with. Like I love
Yes.
being obsessed with something, but I like when
Yep.
I'm learning choreography, it's like obsession and I'm like, oh, just I want more. Give me more.
Yes. Awesome. I love this because you and Bailey, I'm not 0% surprised that there's such alignment there. 0% surprised. So you guys are both mastery playfuls, right? So you craving like ritual brings you in, closed loop practices bring you in, kind of finite styles of work bring you in, things that have a clear start, middle, and end, right?
Yeah.
And this is people who I feel like are needle through a thread, like kind of the tighter the challenge, the more the body's like, yeah, I want that,
Mhm.
right?
And the
And so,
satisfaction felt in that as well, of completing something, of having something start, middle, end. That feeling of satisfaction in the body is also really strong.
Yeah, and so there's this practice like where novelty, where again, like play has this balance of novelty and ritual, or novelty and repetition, because it's through repetition we learn mastery, but it's through novelty that you expand like capacity, and it's novelty turns that hypervigilance on, right? That kind of obsessive, like what's coming next? What's coming next? That's the flavor of actually like hypervigilance that comes from the survival aspects of the body, but are used differently within a play, right? And ritual is that place of getting things really complete into a place of certainty, right? That from a survival instinct looks like fight, like a fight instinct. It has to be this way, right? But is practiced differently when we practice it from a mastery standpoint in play. So you and Bailey are both people who are like your play is amplified through mastery based practices, through closed looped practices, through finite games, like through that invitation of a needle through a thread, right? And I'm on the other side of the play spectrum, right? I absolutely despise choreography dance. Cannot. I will go to them because I love the people I go with, but I go knowing that it is not, it will be a challenge. I studied it to help with executive functioning issues, and it is 100% not my play, right? I am like, move like water, right? And if I'm given a very open frame, I can stay in it for a very long time, right? And then from that open frame, move like water, I will then create the tighter framework that like works for self, right? Okay, now I'm going to move like a ripple for a little bit. And it's that breath and the move and breath and move where you become the conductor, right? And this is a place where people hear their own voice, right? That cultivates self in a different way. And so again, there's play is primal to people. We all have our own ways. We all have our own strengths that we bring to the table. And there's also patterns to players. And so finding for people who are listening, noticing, does a more open frame move like a tree, right? Move like water, versus if that provokes some sort of anxiety, that might just be because you need a tighter frame, right? What kind of tree, right? What season of a tree? If it brings up tons of questions,
You need like a
you
container
need
to.
a tighter container. And so this is what's really interesting when we talk about teaching play and do whatever you want. And I saw Sam's face when I offered that, and like this level of startle of need a tighter container, need a tighter container. But like she found it, right? Like she found it because we have this sense that our bodies don't know what they need, but actually when we are given permission, which play is the practice, we absolutely know.
Mm-hmm.
We need permission givers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's what I love about the framework of play and being somebody who's cultivating play for others is like, how do I give you this permission slip to care about yourself? How do I give yourself permission to go towards the things that cultivate challenge and growth and interest and joy, and understanding I'll come with you and I will enjoy Bailey's dance classes because I love Bailey and I love seeing people alive in this community. And that's not where my soul is going to find its play.
Mm-hmm.
I will find it rolling on the ground and going through the metamorphosis of a caterpillar, turning to goo.
I could also turn to goo, right? But that wouldn't necessarily be my play, right? That wouldn't be that internal experience of enjoyment as easily for me as it is for TJ, right? And
Yeah.
that's why we call it a practice, because it is a skill to refine of like, you figuring out what activates you for joy, right? What makes you feel alive, what makes you feel excited. There's a lot of relearning and deconstructing that has happened in that process because
Yeah.
we've been suppressing that part of ourselves since we were children, right? That slow erosion that then just went away. And then at the end of the day, we talk about it's a practice, a skill, but it's fucking fun because it's
Yeah.
our joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
Taking risks on you, it's taking risks on other people because play is relational. It's regenerative, right? Like that nothing ever dies in play. Like it never is gone to waste. Like,
and joy's not finite, right? And
mm-hmm.
joy's not scarce. That's what moves us out of like a capitalistic framework of it is like
I don't
me.
have time. I don't have the ability.
But like me having joy doesn't take away from you guys having joy, right? If anything, me having a joyful experience amplifies your ability to have a joyful experience, right? And so there's also this huge relational aspect to it that helps everyone I feel like is turning, being like, how do we form community? We need to form community. How do we form community? Like play is one of the best ways to do that, to find your people, to know what you want from a community, to know what your role and your meaning is in a community, is because you're aligned to that part of you that is connected to joy.
Yeah.
Mm.
We started this thread in this idea of play and stress, right? And we have these huge cultural stresses occurring right now, right? And in my vision for all of us, this our world to become a more playful culture, right? That we are playing for a better world, right? The stakes are high right now. This is the Super Bowl of our culture in this
The fifth
moment.
Super Bowl in our lifetime.
I think many of us want to watch. In some ways, with play, you learn to feel a little bit more fearless because you have to allow things to change. At some point, you're going to build you're going to build that tower, and you're going to test the limits of it, and it's going to fall. And you're going to learn that through that falling, it wasn't a mistake. It is a mistake that gets to get metabolized and alchemized and used into a greater structure. And there's a little bit of a fearlessness that comes with allowing some of these structures that aren't working to begin with to begin to get deconstructed, because play is this place of, this isn't working, I don't like this, and giving yourself permission to take things apart and not be like, but we worked so hard, we've been working for this for 100 years. Have we? Is this what we really worked for? Tell me. Not to say there are beautiful people out there doing incredibly meaningful work, but is anybody really loving our systems? And
Yeah.
play gives us resilience, this place of trust in one another to begin to really deconstruct things and pull things apart and figure out what's working and how do we rebuild this.
Well,
And so it's less intimidated by some of the
The invisible rules that even say that these things matter, right? It allows you to just question and live in that space of what if a bit more easily and more flexible, from not from a place of fear.
yeah, so we have these big stressors that we really need to be more engaged in, right? To feel less hopeless around, to feel less powerless around, to feel like matter.
With the key going back to your entire business name with revolution, people really do need to recognize that. I can't remember the name of the economist, but there was an economist in the 40s that predicted that by the time his
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren are going to come around 100 years in the future, which is already past, or he was a 20. So it was like, we're at the time that he predicted. He was like, everyone is going to only work 15 hours a week, and only because they need a sense of purpose, not because they have to, because of the amount of automation that new industry and innovation is going to come in. And you look around, you're like, no, people are working more because of our government structure, and because of the consumption and like our compulsion to consume. But play fixes two sides of this, because one, when you're playing, like when I'm dancing, I don't want to have a cocktail. I don't care about the cocktail
Yes.
at night that relaxes me from the day because I've danced. And oh, when
Yes.
you play, there's the consumption to scroll, or the consumption to purchase something is fulfilled by the play. At least like that's my
Yes.
assumption.
So
I would argue for
dopamine,
that.
no, dopamine without
Absolutely.
effort, dopamine without effort is dangerous,
Mhm.
right? Dopamine without effort is dangerous on the body,
Mm.
because that is what starts to begin to fuel the addiction and the escapism, right? And so play actually encourages you to think about and welcome good stress, right? Where stress is not unilaterally
Equal.
made, right? There is the stress of surviving our absolute, like, are the systems that we're navigating on a daily basis. And that's when we talk about everybody should be angry. Yeah, yeah, you should be angry. You are likely being touched by the chaos in this moment. You have loved ones who are being touched by the chaos in this moment. We
Just
can
look at
see.
Denmark and the amount that they're supported, all mothers and families, and like how they're supported versus the US. It's just like
Mm-hmm,
I get mad when I think about that every time.
mm-hmm. And so, in this place where love is very motivating in that way, so there's this bad stress, quote unquote, bad again, but it's stress that like our body can't metabolize because it's not really meant to. Like,
Hmm.
we're not meant to be okay right now, right? Like, it is okay to not be okay, because like I don't know how you could be like coherently okay. And it's okay to be okay in like your daily functioning. And I think play can help when we talk about the stress snacks, right? Tending to low stress experiences, helping your body reframe and reprioritize the stress that matters to you so that you can feel more energetically available, like that you can love your life and love your people, and that becomes a place where you see your stress get metabolized into better, like, existence in your world, existence in your families, existence in your communities, which then carries on into everybody's more resourced.
Well, yeah, that's like I was gonna say good dancing is a good stress on the body, right? It's if we take what's going on in the world as bad stress, it is a stressor on the body, right? The lungs have to exert more, it's your muscles are moving, all of those are taking energy, right? That's all a form of exertion, but it is also pointing you and orienting you in a way that like can give you dopamine and make you feel good. And yeah, TJ.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's important to talk about like the two sides of play, like play as a surrendering practice and play as a empowerment and discipline practice,
Mm.
right? Where like people can go dance and they can lose themselves in the dance and actually it feels very effortless, right? And this actually, even though it feels effortless, it is effortful. Like it takes some effort sometimes to allow yourself freedom,
Mm.
right? To not to allow your body to feel safe enough to go there, right? I come from a little bit of an addictions history and work with people who have addictions and their backgrounds, and they often really struggle with letting themselves feel free because the last places that they felt free, like they use substances as a place of freedom, as a place of escapism, and it can feel really scary to feel liberated because that can feel untethered. But play is, I got you. And so it's important that like we talk about play and like these baby steps, that you don't just go lose yourself to play, but actually like you're finding small steps towards liberation that feels like the surrendering, right? And in the same way, you're also taking small steps towards like more discipline based practices, more empowerment based practices. Like, how hard can I push myself in a direction that matters, right? And where you're studying for something, you're challenging yourself, you're skill building, you're constructing, you're focused. And this being the other side of like, how powerful can I get? Because ultimately, you're going to find an end, right? We are not all powerful. And then all of a sudden that crumbles back into surrender, right? And so play is this flow between this state of full surrender where I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in our play. Let's find out together, right? To we got this. Let's see how fucking big let's find
How
out
far can we
what
jump?
we can make,
How
right?
far can we jump?
Yes, how high can we jump? How far can we go? And but again, in this happening of baby steps, because again, in this place of productivity culture, we often push ourselves too quickly, which then re-traumatizes the system. So if we go too quickly, too deeply into play, either from into the surrender or into the hard work of it, it can become re-traumatizing where we feel lost and untethered, or we feel like hyper fixated and in that. So it being important to find play in these baby steps, those small stresses, those small snacks, those like small steps that you can take. Like, how much joy can you alchemize today? How much joy can you receive today? How much joy can you create today? And then do it again tomorrow. And
And
then do
in
it
your
again tomorrow.
and
Well,
in
I
your
want to.
everyday life, because that's the problem that happens with hobbies, right?
Yes.
That's one of the hobby traps is go buy all of this needlepoint shit, go consume and buy all that. And
And
you've
it's
never
trapped in
done it
privilege.
before. And so you're going to have shame that you now have to throw all this stuff away or it goes in a drawer to die because that was too big of a step. Don't start by buying all that stuff.
And where play gets entangled with privilege here,
Yes.
financial privilege and time privilege.
So I want to scoot us back to the economists saying that we only have to work 15 hours a week because there is, at least in the online space, like that is a potential direction you want your business to move in, where you
Mm-hmm.
are working a few hours a week or like significantly less than what people would call full time, and it's still a successful business. And people move in that direction and then they don't actually do it because their only outlet of play is their business. So then they
Yeah.
just, it's like this fulfilling loop of like, my only engaging thing is my business. So I'm going to keep working. Or you see this in even like traditional family roles
Mm-hmm.
where the husband will only work all the time because his family life isn't engaging for him. So,
I see this all the time in working. Like I work a lot in reproductive psychology. So when like parents kids age into teenage years and they don't want to spend time with them as much, they're like, I don't know what the fuck to do with myself. I'm like, I get that. You've been in a trap. And so one, I would be like challenge people to think, please define work. How would you know you're working? So one, when we talk about working 15 hours a week, what we're really meaning is working towards productivity framework. Because you work to feed your family, you
You have
work,
an output.
you work your Sam, like when you're not working behind the computer, do you consider the work you're doing on your land work?
Yeah.
You're really, if you're in a complicated conversation and conflict with your husband, is that work?
My brain doesn't want to categorize it as that, but I could see it.
Yeah, but it's work because if you're working on intimacy,
Yeah.
you're like the friction, like when you're in a state of friction, you're in a state of work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like one is how do you define work? And then how do you create a more abundant framework around value? Because again, this devalues so much labor,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the idea that stay-at-home moms don't have jobs, right? Of course they fucking do.
Of course they work. Yes.
Of course they
Well,
work.
so I wanted to push us in the more of the direction of creating play outside of your business.
Yes. Yes. This is, yeah. And so I think part of that frame is how to create a more abundant definition of work.
And a more abundant definition of play too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think that's also why we want people to focus on where they are because the joy's there, right? Not only does your joy matter, but you're not play void, you're play deprived. And so it's there. You just need to start getting curious about noticing it, right? And so oftentimes we talk about glimmers, which glimmers are the opposites of triggers, right? That little moment
Mm.
of soft joy that can exist in something and how you can be intentional about cultivating that. And you get intentional about it by doing the noticing of like first noticing the glimmers, noticing the little glimmers in your life, those moments of soft joy that feel good on the body, that feel good on the heart, the mind, and the body. And then the next step is to get a little curious about you could get curious about why you feel the glimmer in that moment, but also get curious about like, what if I did it a little more, right? What if
Yeah. What if I
this,
moved my glimmer?
right,
Wrote
what
a
if
story about my glimmer?
this warm blanket like is like making me feel cozy and nice, but if I were to like move my hands and like really luxuriate in the texture, does that feel nicer? Does that feel weird and I don't like it? When I'm cooking, does music make me feel better or does a podcast make me feel better? Which one? I think that's something I just did of that little voice of invisible rules. It's like, oh, I should be listening to more like a podcast. They're going to expand my mind. And when I cook though, I hate it. I hate listening to podcasts when I cook because when I cook, I want to drop into the moment and lose myself and I want to dance and I want to move while I'm cooking. And I can't do that if someone's talking. It's that like little moment of noticing where there's those sparks of joy and then get curious and tinker and try to make them bigger. And sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes the podcast sucks and I have to turn it off. But sometimes Chapel Roan comes on and it's amazing. And so that's why we want you to start where you're at and like curiosity and noticing are like the foundational frameworks of how that can grow in your life outside of your business and grow in a way that like is something you can actually hold on to and cultivate.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is so I want to talk about your friend who has an autoimmune, I think you said, and the interaction of play and privilege and capacity in this way. So this is one of the reasons that one, I think it's really important to start with baby steps because research shows that we want to have a 60 to 80% success rate in learning new things. Because if we're lower than that, then it's not challenging enough. If it's higher than that, it's too challenging. I often invite people, what if you were to try a couple moments of joy today and just feeling 60% joy, like between 60 and 80% joy, right? Because again, we have this kind of expectation of the wild woman, right? This unleashed. And that's an incredibly intense expectation if you're walking in with that is to be the expectation, right? So one is creating a framework that feels doable to your body, that feels inviting to your body, right? And then also play being this place of desire and capacity, where like desire, capacity, and choice meet is what's the desire, and then checking that desire with the capacity so that you're not moving beyond the capacity, but actually working within your capacity zone. So I might have the desire to clean my basement, which is like an unfinished mess, but do I have the capacity? No. What do I have the capacity for? where again, there's that centering of choice without without abandoning the voice that comes from desire, right? And so one is this baby steps, and then it's baby steps that are framed in desire and capacity. And understanding how powerful the imagination is as a practice for bodies, right? Where there's so much research that talks about when we go to places in our imagination, our bodies don't know the difference, right? These are people who have very powerful, like sports psychology meditations, right? Where they can track them on MRI machines and see their bodies performing under imagination. This is the way anxiety and fear work, right? Again, in these predictive patterns where we feel certain that something's going to happen. And again, it's this almost imagination practice, right? And it's very interesting. I have a friend who's in a wheelchair, has been in a wheelchair for a very long time, and he is one of the most creative people I know. He has juvenile arthritis, and he has a travel blog that's dedicated to helping wheelchair bound individuals travel.
Mm.
And what's really interesting is that he talks about every day, every moment within the day, he has no idea what the capacity of his body is going to be like. So he can make all the different plans, and he has to be able to throw any and all of them away because ultimately he has no idea what his body is going to be able to do that day. He can also make all the plans, and then there are only stairs. He's traveled a lot of Europe into these old pubs. He's a big beer connoisseur, and he has gone to many pubs and been like, oh, there's no way for me to get in there. And again, he has no control over that. So his ability to kind of pivot is incredible. And really learning in these places where there are constraints within the bodies, within constraints in our culture, right? Where there is systemic limitations that become that needle through that challenge point. And so much of this, again, I think is about deconstructing whatever image you have about play as this external thing, understanding that when we play, grief work comes up, like joy and grief grow together. I'm like I think delightfully, but I understand that's hard when people first start because when we start to encounter joy, we're like, oh my God, where has this been? How long has this been hiding within me? Like it's impossible when we start to feel that joy. I can't believe that I denied my body that kind of space, that kind of permission, right? This like opportunity for reclamation. And one is really beginning to deconstruct whatever expectations you have of play so that you can reconstruct play from this internal experience of being engaged in whatever way works for you that challenges your joy, challenges you to be able to feel more joy, metabolize more joy, and give more joy out into the world. And that these take risks, these take trial and efforts because something that works at 9 a.m. is going to work at 9 p.m. Our bodies are different in their capacity at those times, right? And so it being this real place of constant exploration of self and external, and it's internal, external frame. But for people who have like limitations that come from mental health, from systemic issues, from health related issues, is really allowing the framework of play to die, allowing the image of what society holds as play
Mm.
and the way that is wrapped up as privilege to die and to reclaim it as human right.
I want examples. I want examples for people who might feel like who fit into, I can't go to a dance class or can't do X, Y, and Z for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Let's think about ways we can walk through this from the morning you wake up, right
Mm.
from the moment you wake up. How quickly can you wake up and feel your feet on the earth, the aliveness of the ground beneath you? Maybe you're somebody who wants to challenge speed,
Mm.
right? How quickly can you start your day in dancing,
Mm.
right? Or on the opposite, like how long can you allow every single cell in your body to feel alive before it touches the earth, right? So it can go both ways, right? In that first thing in the morning, right? Like how do you prioritize joy first thing in the morning, right? If it is that your
And
kid is
then from those
crying.
examples, it was like almost not even challenging yourself, but it was like exploring the experience of it, of with specific your own rules that you're making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are
And one of
rules
the
an important part of play? Is it like a requirement, or is that like a
I don't
even
think
like
so.
weird rules of like how slow can you go? Is that's the rules of the game kind of thing?
I
Yeah.
think rules give a frame. They give the friction, right? And I think they also teach you to be your own game master.
Mm-hmm.
So Bailey's heard this, but I didn't grow up with a lot of laughter in my personal life or in my immediate culture. And a couple of years ago, I was like, I just really want to learn how to laugh more. And I'm not a particularly humorous person. It's been pretty interesting how I couldn't understand sarcasm for many years. And so I started a hunt for slutty laughers in my life, right? Just people who laugh very fucking easily, right? And I just wanted to be like, how? What does that feel like for me to be around? What do people laugh about? I just needed more exploration. So that just became my like a year-long hunt is like just paying attention to whose laugh I like the most in a room and spending and like gradually getting my body closer to them, right? Like gradually at a party, like going from one person to the next person, like how can I get myself near them or next to them? Could I even talk to them? Right? So that my body should start to look, but again, that becomes you become the game master around the things that matter to you. So you get to make the rules and break the rules and change the rules whenever you want to.
Because it's not about winning, it's about the internal experience of existing within those rules. And speaking about people with different capacity levels, they're the what TJ explained throughout the day was like a body practice, but there's also then just ways to, when you are being more intentional about your curiosity, to engage it as like a mind practice, right? Of the exploration. Like TJ and I have exploration hunts all the time, right? I sent her the other day, I sent her a picture of this random statue I found, and I said, find their best friend. And TJ, I like sent TJ on a hunt to go
Oh,
find
I
this
found more today that I meant to send you.
to find this random statue's best friend, right? And or we go on rainbow hunts where like we need to look around our room and like in the order of the rain, like go find a red object, an orange object, a green object, and like I forgot yellow and green. You have to go in the
Whatever the
order.
rainbow is.
Yeah, and but it's like finding the challenge, that mix of like challenge with joy, right? What makes it feel fun? We've both had separate food exploration hunts,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was looking for the best cheese curds, she was looking for the best wings, and we created parameters of rules. We did this separately before
Like
we
we both have
really.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, and so
Well,
it's
and this is like the line you said of like dopamine without stress is
Yeah.
destructive. Is that what
it's
you said?
dangerous.
Dopamine without effort is dangerous.
Is dangerous.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
but
it's that's you could find novelty while scrolling or find the novelty of looking for the best cheese curds.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or like I could find it that like the dopamine, I could Google like an influencer, a Midwest influencer who would tell me the best ones. But like I went out and explored them, and like I had an annual work trip to Madison, Wisconsin, actually with TJ's sister. And that's we created a play frame around exploring and trying the different cheese curds. So that's something if you're wheelchair bound or if like you are chronically ill and don't have a ton of capacity, right? Could you get like curious about the exploration of your senses? Could you
Mm-hmm.
get curious about like how the different foods in your life, how you interact with them, and is there a way you could enjoy it more? Is there a way you could, maybe it's learning about the process of making those things, right? What if it's a documentary about the food system that like sparks your intellectual curiosity, your intellectual play, or the sensation of it, right? Like how could you enter into different moments in your life with a playful lens and a curiosity to explore?
And the other thing I want to talk about is like play is a practice of engagement, right? And so sometimes we need to disengage in order to find joy, and sometimes we need to engage a little further to find joy. So, for instance, like you were talking about how much you love the obsessive framework, like that feeling of being obsessed, like that, and I know that too, like the like that rabbit hole, right? And like the joy that comes from like unleashed curiosity, really, right? And how what an incredible experience that is. But I'm sure you also know the experience of when you get into a rabbit hole that is not great,
Too
right?
much.
Yeah.
Too much, right? Where you're more highly engaged than what feels good for the body.
Oh, it's like how I would explain it is like I would get wrapped up in the obsession, but you keep going. I don't want more, but there is more there versus the feeling of I want more is really is
The
really
consumption,
the
you
goal.
get into
Yeah.
consumption-based body,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
get into consumption-based body,
Mhm.
right? And then I see people in this, particularly when a place that I see this a lot in my work is like people who hyper identify within one role. Like they are like, because I work with play and I work specifically with adults, I don't work with kids, right? But I have a lot of adults who are like, could you work with my daughter or could you work with my son? I was like, no, I only work with kids. Will you tell me about your play though? And they are like, la, 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 right? And they're very focused on their children's happiness, their children's like sense of satisfaction and being, right? And this becomes almost can become like almost an obsession that is wrapped into the role of parent. And one of the questions I often ask people is, can you tell me about a joyful woman you knew growing up? And people rarely have answers because women have again been taught in this place of self-sacrificing, right? Where their joy comes when I'll get back to that when my kids are out of the house. But then we have a ton of adults in our generation who are struggling with adulthood, who are kids who don't want to become adults because we're not really modeling that adulthood's very fun, right? And what an incredibly important intergenerational gift. If we're talking about intergenerational trauma, we also are talking about intergenerational gifts and resiliency, and what a gift we give to our children when we show them that joy can be abundant throughout your life and that you can struggle as a child. You can be that my child can struggle and I can still hold in my body that it is safe enough for me to feel joy.
My favorite messages for that you guys were putting out during the holidays was around the one that impacted me the most or hit me the most was the idea that as the magic maker is what you're saying of the person who's quote unquote in charge of making the holidays feel magical. It's like the actually how to do that is feeling magic within yourself. And that's what
Yeah.
your kids want from you. That's what your family wants. And like for people like me who don't plan on having kids, like same with like in relationships, like our partners don't
Absolutely.
actually want us to make things nice for them. They want us to be joyful. And that's what makes
Mhm.
them happy, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great example because again, like you can do something really beautiful for your partner, but if you're doing it in a way that is sacrificial,
Yeah.
then the pressure is on them to validate your joy and your effort.
Mm.
Versus, I had so much fun making this meal. I was thinking about you. Like, I know how much you love chicken wings, and I made this, and I had so much fun making it. I really hope you enjoy it, where it becomes a gift of the spirit. And the sense of success of that experience is not dependent on the way that they receive it.
Even the output, right? Because it's your experience of doing it that matters, right?
Yeah, like I was in this hour of like dedicated and inspired love.
Mm.
And here it is. And for somebody to be able to say thank you, this is disgusting, but I'm so glad you made it for me. And again in that place though that if you're I had a boyfriend one time who gave me like a 6 foot stuffed animal and I was like and I was living in like a studio apartment. They're like, I just thought I saw this and I thought of you. And I was like, why the fuck did you think of me? Like, why did you think of me? Do I have a stuffed animal in the apartment? Do you see a place for it to even sit? It was such a misattuned gift. And the way that they felt so rejected when I rejected it, because it was like literally nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with me. And so, this way of like, when we cultivate joy for someone else in that sacrificial way, then it becomes dependent. It becomes almost like relational hostage
Mm.
versus it being in the play space where it gets used and folded in to the relationship.
See, I just bypassed this by telling my husband that I need kudos.
Go for it.
I made dinner. I think it's delicious. Tell me how good it is.
Great. 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 You get to, there's no rules here, right? There's no rules.
You get to make up the rules.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think it goes to this, again, this place of do whatever you want. Like, how, if it's causing no harm to self or others, why do we put so much pressure?
I think it's life changing for you to realize that everyone in your life is going to be happier if you actually put your joy first.
Absolutely.
Everyone, your kids are going to have a
Mhm.
better upbringing. You're like, your marriage is going to be better. Like everything is going to, the problem will be solved. All the problems will be solved.
Yeah. But also the idea of it, your joy first, but that is not always independent of another person's joy.
Yeah.
So Bailey and I were talking about this earlier, like like what a gift it is for to be like a yes and person to somebody you love. Be like, I am dedicating my play body to you today.
So
What do you
much
want to
pressure.
do?
Oh my God.
Right.
Don't say that to
Yeah.
me.
But like, what do you want to do? But what it's pressure, but it's also that place of permission, right?
Mhm.
Like how scary it is to hand somebody like exploration space. Like, I've got your back. What do you want to do first? And they're like, I don't know. I was like, okay, what can we do together to figure that out?
Mm.
Right. Well, what would feel nice about like just taking the pressure off of it? Right. Because again, for many people in that in that neurodivergent place, the starting of something is really intense.
Mhm.
Right. And so let me help. Right. Let's just brainstorm everything you might want to do. Right. I got you. Right? It makes me so happy to love the shit out of you and to bring all of my resources like to the presence of our relationship.
Mm.
Right? We're like, again, because I have been tending to my joy, I have so much that I can support, teach me how to be the best version of me for you because I fucking love you.
Mhm.
Right? And so it's again, we can tend to our like our tend to our self joy, but it never stays in house.
Mhm.
It never stays in house. It's not meant to.
Because we say play wants to be seen, right? And play is a relational experience. It is
Oh.
something that,
That's why we share podcasts, we share books, we share memes.
yeah. And it is based on what TJ's describing is in a relationship that has an immense amount of trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has been built through play, right? Play requires when you are playing soccer with someone, let's just even think about something like that, right? You're in a game of soccer, you are trusting the other players not to run into you or push you down purposefully, right? Or hit you or throw the ball directly at your face, to pick up the ball and throw it at your face, right? Like there's a trust in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the play experience with other people, that's why it's like this powerful way to form strong relationships, is because you have to trust other people in play, as a relational experience, which allows you to build, right?
Mm-hmm.
That creates such a strong foundation on which you can build deeper relational experiences.
Yeah, and I was doing like a convo with a bunch of coaches recently, and they're like, "Oh yeah, our kids love to play soccer," and because they all coach soccer, and I'm like, "What do they love about it?" They just love the play. And I was like, okay, have you ever asked them like what their favorite part of the play is? Because like, some kids are going to love the team experience. Some people are going to love the physicality experience of it. Some people actually love, I was just challenging our community rec program to start a kids refereeing league because some kids are way better at the game structure and rules and framework, and they have much more interest in being the frame holders than the players,
Mm.
right? Some of them love being on the sidelines and studying the game and coaching, right? People are going to love different things about the game, and that's going to have to do with their play style and the fact that, again, people play in patterns, right? Like, and we may all play the same game, but our play is going to be getting lit up in different ways, right? Where some people love the intellectual play of the game of making strategy, creating gameplay. Some people are going to love the heart of the game, like the feeling of the teamwork, right? And some people are going to love the rough and tumble of the game, of like the force, the life force within their body. And so oftentimes I feel it's helpful for people to understand that play gets lit up in an intellectual way, in a heart way, or in a body way, right? So even as you're listening to this podcast, being curious, are you interested in like the research aspect of this? Do you want to know more about the play state? Do you want to know more about the flow state? How those differ? Did that absence of research confuse you or piss you off, right? That's an intrigue interest point, right? Does the feeling of mattering, right? That sense of building something new together, right? That inspiration base is that's heart-centered play, right? You might be drawn more towards being a meaning maker. Or are you feeling, oh my God, I just need to do something, right? What?
They
There's this
already
like
shut us off.
friction, right? Yeah. There's an aliveness in the body itself. Like you might be somebody who really needs to lean more into kinetic play. And this kind of goes and then building this a little bit into like when you're as a solo entrepreneur and your business is personal, right? And there's a lot of personal investment in your business, in your work, how critical, and it can become a play outlet. It can become also very high risk, right? Your clients start validating your voice. You're monitoring likes as a way to how many people, like in a way where the pressure becomes on your people rather than you holding business as a play frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then also finding places where you're playing and it doesn't matter, right? Like, where are you cultivating story that you don't share? Where are you moving your body in a way that's unseen, right? Like, we have this kind of everybody needs to be seen, and take your play unseen, right? Like,
That was
hold it
something where
hostage.
I started running last year, and I'm like a really slow, bad runner. And I was like loving because I had an Aura ring at the time, and since I've been frustrated by it, but I would track my speed and stuff and the route and be like, oh my gosh, I ran for 2 miles. I'm so great. It's so excitement, so much excitement about it. And it was just, it was so much fun to be like having I'm clearly a mental player from what I'm doing. It's like it was like the seeing the data around something that I like not even like close to being good at was joyful because it's not something there's like very low risk. There's no to feed into your risk point.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
no one was watching. It was just what you found interesting about it in the
Mhm.
movement of your body. It gave you a different examination point in the movement of your body.
So is it
Yeah,
you need to bring down the risk of play in business? Like what is the risk and play element with business?
I think there's kind of two aspects to that. And one is how much risk is associated in your business, right? Like, really acknowledging the financial risks you're taking, the personal risks that you're taking to ensure that success isn't tied to your survival in
Mm.
a way. Because
But what if it
there
is for people?
there needs to be other places where they're dispersing risk,
Mm.
right? Like, my business is tied to my survival, right? Like, my household is extraordinarily dependent on our income. We are absolutely 100% a two income household
Mhm.
and truly need to be a three income household.
Mm.
We are below our income threshold. Absolutely, our income survival is tied to my business. And that is scary as absolutely fucking hate that reality for me
Mhm.
because it puts so much pressure on the business, right? Like, I actually currently have COVID. All my clients are canceled this week. And so I have
How are you
zero
talking
income.
right now? We
I have
should have
zero income this
rescheduled
week.
this.
I'm not sick. I'm
Yeah, she's
asymptomatic. I tested only because I was seeing physical bodies, and my daughter had COVID, and I was like, I can't go and be I
Yeah.
can't go ethically and not test. So I'm completely asymptomatic. Technically, I might be able to see people, but I had to make
Yeah.
the call because I see so many vulnerable bodies.
Yeah.
I'm 100% out of income this week as a result, right?
Hmm.
One, that's a systemic issue.
Yeah.
That's a systemic issue, right? This should not be the reality of our culture. One, but then there's also these places of like, where can I disperse the fear, disperse the risk, right? While also honoring the risk inherent in my business,
Hmm.
right? I can't undo that this is the reality, but it does mean that I have to take this fear and metabolize it elsewhere,
Hmm.
right? And to allow this risk and this fear to to have another house to be expressed, because it's not on my clients to be responsible for that risk taking. So it is taking responsibility for the risks in my body, acknowledging sort of some of the systemic issues
Hmm.
that actually create those risk zones. And I still do this work because I love it. So, like, how do I show up to this work with joy and with abundance and not fear that my clients are going to cancel and I'm not going to get income, that I'm going to have to cancel and not get income? Those are the reality, and they do create fear in my life and have repercussions. I can't bring that fear and serve them ethically. They
Can
have to
you
be detangled where that fear is living elsewhere, and I'm taking responsibility for that through my play practices.
Can you
Did
give
you
an
want to share?
example of dispersing? Like, what is dispersing risk? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, I've never talked about this. So I have to think about I have to think about this a little bit. I do tend to try things that are scarier on my body. So whether it is trying a new class, did improv last year, right? So taking places that are like high performance, higher fear for me, so that my body is feeling thrill or intensity in spaces that aren't my work.
So it's if you have a high risk situation in your job or in your
One.
career, you actually want higher risk, safe risk activities outside of that would be dispersing risk. Okay, that's what I
Yes.
thought you meant with by the wording, and I was like, what is the science with that? What does that actually do?
I think it's contrast care, right? It's a
Okay.
pendulation practice, right? So there's both and where you also take a lot of comfort risk, right? I also really push like how far away from risk, how safe can I create, how much coziness can I create? And so it's a kind of a contrast practice from a somatic experiencing, it's pendulation, right? And so if you have high risk in one, you need to be practicing high risk elsewhere in a way that doesn't matter, right? If you're a heart surgeon, but the only time you're ever practicing focus is when you're in surgery, that's not necessarily great on the brain and body because it's not actually getting zones of genius where somebody isn't at risk.
Mhm.
And so like I also think I do this in like the way I read, right? Reading higher risk
Mm,
stories, like stories of human survival stories that like I'm not in
yeah.
versus like where I'm a pretty strong character in some of my clients' stories.
Can I
Hold a lot
explain
of
it back to
power.
you to see if I
Yeah.
understand it correct?
Yeah. And I've also never ever voiced this.
No, I love
I've
it. So I just want to
never
make sure I'm
verbalized this. So I have
understanding it
no
right.
idea if this is going to be true in a day or two.
Okay,
It might
great.
be.
Love it.
It might be. But
It makes sense. So what I would think is my assumption would have been before this conversation was, okay, I have a really high risk job, therefore I need like as much comfort practices as possible as my balance. But the way you're explaining it is, okay, I have this high risk job and I need to actually detach the risk from the job because it is important. And I need my body to be able to experience the risk elsewhere so it can digest it. So let's find safe places or even fun places to experience the risk so that it's not like actually within the career situation. Is that correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's also an attunement piece, right? If
Yeah.
I went rock climbing right now, that's
Mhm.
too high of a risk. Like even like if right, so you have that's where the baby steps come in. That's where the
Mhm.
like practicing and tinkering comes in. Because for
Mhm.
me, a risk might be trying a recipe I've never tried that has a complicated step that I've never experienced. That's a risk on my body that I can take that gives me like the risk edge you almost want to hit is like that little bit of thrill and excitement and the I don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen, but I am not like I'm not applying to Top Chef in that practice, right? That's too high risk. That's ridiculous. But at the same time, I am practicing a risk in that moment of trying something new, of engaging the body in a way it's never been engaged before.
It's like a steam valve of releasing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
pressure off.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
doing it in a way that feels good to you,
Hmm.
that feels challenging to you, that engagement again, that engages
Mhm.
you, that isn't just go run a marathon right now. Because like
Hmm.
I would hate
Mhm.
that. I would hate that on my body. But like you know it's finding where those paths are that give you those outlets, the steam valve outlets, so that the pressure isn't just mounting on in like the really important places.
Yeah. And like I think what also comes up for me is, it's also meeting the body where it's already at,
Hmm.
right? If I were to only be doing comfort measures, it almost ignores the high level of fear I feel somewhere else. So like when I face the reality of like the risk of my job, right? Like all my clients quit this week after they hear the podcast. They're like, oh my God, my therapist is poor. I can't be responsible for that. Like, that's too much pressure. Face the reality, I lose my breath,
Hmm.
right? Like, it's so scary to feel vulnerable financially, right? It's so scary to be like, oh my God, if my caseload drops by 50%, like, we have major issues in like our ability to pay important structures in our life, right? Like, I stop breathing when I face the reality, right? So I can't gaslight my body into feeling calmer.
Mm.
That is the truth of my reality. So I have to meet it in the reality, in the sensory space where I can meet it where it's at, almost create a false environment for it to have a similar experience, but one that's safe in my body, that it can be in contact with that sensory threshold.
Is it like a conversion thing of, okay, we're in fear over here, let's convert it to excitement. We're anxious over here,
Yeah.
let's convert it to,
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
play as a conversion technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's something we've talked with people. Like there's something I had to do in my own body of relearning the sensation of excitement, what is very similar to the sensation in my body of anxiety.
It's the same.
And so it's that navigation. I think honestly, a lot of adults need to relearn what excitement feels like, and instead of dropping into anxiety, and play is like play is a great tool for doing that.
I don't think I told you guys this of like that was like such a big part of overcoming chronic anxiety for me was like, because my husband was like, I don't even know what anxiety is. Like, as like an extreme athlete. And I was just like explaining the feeling in my body. He was like, oh yeah, that's just excitement. I was like, God damn it,
Yeah,
okay.
I would poke them, but again, in that's I have to always wonder when people tell me they have no anxiety, like how much of that is gender-based cultural conditioning.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely can. I have worked with many athletes who have had pretty significant injuries that categorically change the way they live their life. They lose community, they lose trust in their body. And so some of that, I think those more high performance athletes, is there's a little bit of a dissociation from the fear
Mm.
rather than a metabolization of the fear.
Yeah.
Um,
This
because
is
again,
an
again,
anxiety.
yeah,
Right, because it's too big to handle too, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. And again, it's creating spaces of contrast, right? If you have a business that's really personal to you and is one honoring the real risks that are there, but also what are the risks you're placing in there? Like, how much do you need your clients to read your emails? How much do you need the validation for your voice to feel valid? And then finding places where the pressure isn't on your this customer as your playmate.
This is like a lot with artists too, because my mom went to art school. Her entire career has been as an art director and graphic designer. And we chat about it a lot, the importance of having these because her work is art, but there's a big range, right? There's doing newsletters for retirement homes versus illustration.
Yeah.
But like having
Mhm.
these projects outside where I'm not actually sharing this, I'm just doing this to create it because I don't want to actually like there needs to be places where I don't have to put it out into the world and it doesn't need to meet eyes and meet judgment in any way.
Right, or make it
Mm-hmm.
a product, right? Talking
Yeah.
about like
Yeah.
for there to be an output, right? She
Mhm.
needs to create. We all and like it's not just your mom. We all need that, right? We
Yeah.
all need outlets where we are creating and building and growing things without the end result in mind, be that the dollar amount that you're selling it for or the how it's going to look on a wall, right? We need to be able to create separate from that, right? That's productivity culture. That's capitalism that is forced on your brain that you need the output what matters, right? And that's so cool over time, like that she has that for herself. Because as a creative, it's
Mm-hmm.
necessary, but it's also necessary for all of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really hard to not turn hobbies into products. Like
Mm-hmm.
just from cost effectiveness. When I took on a candle making project and I was, what, you buy a pound or a couple pounds of beeswax and then it's, what do I do with all these fucking candles? I can't store them. Like, what?
Yeah.
I guess I have to give them away, but I could sell them.
Mm-hmm.
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 That's
Mm-hmm.
but like also your experience of making the candles is what matters,
Yeah.
right? If they sit
Mhm.
in the closet or for the next 20 years, your friends get candles as gifts or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Trusting that like we CJ and I say to each other that pointless play is important, but no play is actually pointless, right?
Mm.
Your experience of that joy of making the candles matters and almost you need to ground up that feeling, right? That embodiment of that's what matters. The actual creation of it is what matters, not what am I going to do with these? Figure it out.
Yeah.
It'll come to you, right?
Yeah.
It'll be the
And
next
also,
gift
like,
and you'll figure it out.
yeah, and I think this is also becomes this place of what's the good play, in a way that, let's say that you made all these candles, right? And actually, and in some ways, you're a prolific seller. right? Selling shit is not your problem, right? You don't need to sell more shit, Sam, right? Right? I'm like, I know you will, right? But I think about those who may feel like terrified of using their voice,
Yeah.
of selling. Find what is it like to get a sales job and sell something that you really love, right? That isn't yours, right? Just to learn your voice, right? Sell somebody, give your candles, all these candles you want to sell, give them to somebody who's struggling with sales. And it becomes this like kind of communal play experience where, hey, will you try selling this? Because then that becomes a place where somebody is taking risks on their voice, but not their voice, not their product, right? And so this place again, like no sale is pointless, right? No play is pointless. And it may be good in your play to just genuinely give them away.
I did give them
right?
away, okay? Stop
Yeah.
it.
I'm not I'm not judging. Reese, you sound like that was a hard decision.
Well, it honestly, like, it irked a part of me. I was just
Yeah.
like, it's like I spent all this money on
You're
like
so skilled, right?
crystals.
Like
Yeah.
you're so skilled at creating products and selling, right? That was probably a big tension point for you.
Oh, totally. I
Of
can
like,
totally
It
see
was
that
just
as
like
a
something where I was like, but I could sell them.
but I think in this again, like you're an intellectual player,
Yeah.
right? So the idea of sales, seeing it like seeing the process through is exciting for you. It's intriguing for you. It is hard to let go of the monitoring because
Well,
it
like
is interesting to you.
the funny thing is like literally the assignment for making those candles was like you have to make something every week that has not that you will not sell. So it was like and I still had this idea of but I could sell these.
Yeah.
Okay, this has
Right.
gone in a weird direction. Let's change topics.
we're talking too, it's getting too personal. But it does go to that place of visible rules matter too,
Mm,
right? Like the invisible versus visible rules, and like people opting in, like visible frameworks help people opt into play.
mm,
One of the things again is like when things go unsaid around rules, that is up to the hypervigilance of the body to find out the consequences,
mhm,
right? So this is, I think, why it feels important to find this balance between meaningfulness and being the master of your own play and being your rule maker to and like creating as much explicit challenges in a way to also then abandoning structure and
mm.
being like, what would feel good? What would feel good? What would feel good? Where it's both and this needle through that is gamifying something, creating a ton of structure, like a tighter container, to also then having a day that is yes and no
Yeah.
plans, even and not a whole day, right? 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? 3 minutes. Do whatever you want for 3 minutes, but you can't make a plan ahead of time.
Okay, so we're going on to 2 hours, so we
Yeah,
gotta wrap up
we
soon. But
got
I
it.
want to
We
ask
go.
two what I'm hoping are smaller questions. Is one recommended reminders for play because it's something where I'm like I'm hearing this. I'm sure other people are like me where they hear this and okay, yes, play is super important. How do I actually remember to do it when so much of my life is indoctrinated in other stuff? This is not a part of my habits. And the other thing is like, what are your on completely different note? What are your recommendations for business owners who lead groups to incorporate play so that the group has a better experience within it?
I'll start, I think, picking play that matters to the group, right? So almost like starting with shallow based play. So it can't be play that's irrelevant to what you're talking about. And you can always picking solo play, whether you're giving them to do something on their own, parallel play where they're doing something alongside of each other, or collaborative play where they have to create something together from the framework.
Mm.
And also, you cannot tell people what to do and it still be play because play inherently includes choice.
What
So
about
you can't,
being the playmaster though?
it still requires that there's space for a player to quit the game
Mhm.
because otherwise it's just,
You're directing everyone. Yeah,
yeah.
you're just telling them what to do.
And so there has to be enough space for somebody and for there to be internal friction that they choose to stay in the game. They choose the relationship.
Mhm.
For group, picking play that matters to the group and anchoring it in your play because the more you bring your authentic play, the more you are modeling play.
And we often share the framework of Dr. Stuart Brown, who's one of the leading researchers on play. He wrote the book called Play, and he has 8 play personalities that are present in every adult, right? And so another step would be to just we have a self-identification tool that we're working on,
Are you
but
making a quiz?
It's
it's
even better.
it's better
Okay.
because I think
Quiz,
one
but
thing that
make it play.
yeah, because one of the problems that I personally have with people quizify Stuart Brown is that it gives people you're one of these 8 styles, but in reality all humans have all 8. We just
Mhm.
express them in
They
different
lock
ways.
themselves in identity because
Right. As a leader, the more you cultivate your play style, the way that you engage with enjoyment, you can then bring other people as a leader in that space, right? So if you are a natural storytelling player, leaning into storytelling play, right? If you are
Mhm.
a movement based, a kinetic player, how are you bringing movement into your events? Because as we've talked about, play is a relational experience. So by you coming alive, it'll amplify their ability to come alive, and they'll trust that they can with you,
hmm
right? They,
you're the permission giver.
yeah, you're the person leading them. And so if you're like, if you hate creative play or if like arts and crafts aren't your thing, but you're telling everyone to doodle, like that's not going to resonate with them, right? It's going to feel false and forced. And honestly, we're forced on a lot of plays force on us, right?
Mhm.
So I'd
Also, you can
say,
always ask me. I love
yes.
coming into groups. I love facilitating groups. I love coming to groups. I love amplifying
No,
your
it's just
work
I was
through
literally
play.
just thinking, I feel like I need to hire you guys for a few sessions to help design play within. This sounds like this. I'll follow up.
Yes.
And wait,
I
where
love,
do
but
people
like
reach out, by the way, while we're there?
we are the Playful Revolution. So you can find us online at the Playful Revolution. We are hello at theplayfulrevolution.com for our email. You can find us on Instagram at the Playful Revolution.
Yeah, we have a
Um,
wonderful little reprogramming orientation series that you can access on our website. We have a soon to be released podcast where we'll welcome you more into our world and give you some some immediate play that you can engage with us on the pod.
what was the second question? It was the business
Reminders. Like,
reminders.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
if we're like so indoctrinated in like productivity culture, like how do you even remember to do stuff like this with even if it's 3 minutes?
Yeah, I'd say grounding into your senses has been a really easy way when I'm really busy.
But how do you
The
remember to do that?
Yeah.
I think there's an aspect of we can hand you our mantra, which is like your joy matters, like your body matters. There is never a moment that you don't matter,
Mhm.
right? We can hand you that lives alive for Bailey and I. But also, I think sitting for yourself in that question of you're allowed to play when X is done, noticing when did that story emerge and what is the permission slip? What is the mantra that gets emerges from your body that you can reclaim? And is it and so I think one of the things Bailey and I go back to all the time in our bodies when we're like, when I'm spiraling, I was like, wait a minute, where's my play compass? Like, why the hell am I yelling at these people I love in my life? Like, why am I angry at these strangers that I don't know?
Mhm.
Right? Like, why? And so that's a compass point for me. It's like, my joy matters.
Mhm.
And it's not just about me because the more I tend to my joy, the more loving and kind and generous and flexible and community based as a human I am. And that's what really matters. So, what do you think, Bailey? What's your
Yeah, I think so much of it of play is that pattern interruption, which is hard,
Mhm.
right? And because it's your internal experience, you have to with like what TJ said earlier of like that flow of internal and external, right? When you are in a moment and you realize you're engaging from a place of stress or a place of anger or a place of anxiety, how can you start to get curious about interrupting that pattern? How
Mhm.
first comes noticing, then comes curiosity, and then comes actually being able to engage with enjoyment. But first, you have to notice. You have to notice
Okay.
what your brain
I have some ideas.
Yeah,
Some
Yeah.
ideas. I obvious okay, so one is okay, I have certain habits already set in my life. So right now, right after this podcast, I can sit down and think about like how to make them more playful. Like I know every single morning, me and my dogs go for a walk to the river. I'm like, okay, there's probably different flavors of play that I
Oh,
can,
totally.
there's like the exploratory one, there's can I race the dogs? There, but it's attached to something I'm already doing. So if I
yes.
decide now and loop that
Habit
in,
stacking. Habit stacking.
and then another one is okay, straight up fucking timers. Can
Mhm.
I have an 11 a.m. and a 3 p.m. timer that goes off where it just says it has a play. Maybe I decide on a play prompt ahead of time, or it just says look around for the rainbow thing.
So
And
one of the
I'm
things
guessing
I
you guys
do
have like
love,
a list of ideas on your way.
so I do love habit stacking. And I think, again, these places where people are in chores, because
Oh
we
yeah,
think, yeah, we think about
dishwashing.
chores as, oh, once I'm done with this, I'll be able to play. But actually, we're never done with laundry. We're never done with
Yeah.
chores. They're just
Bane of my
ongoing.
existence. I feel very
So,
frustrated with the whole idea of
yeah,
it.
this is a place to continue to challenge novelty, to see chores as a place of ritual, right? To see chores as a place of mastery. Like, how much could you master joy within this framework? Hey, dude, coming in. That you brush your teeth.
Eddie, do you want to say hi and say your favorite form of play?
Favorite form of play. Here's
Wait,
my
what is it?
favorite form of play right here.
The dog.
Yeah, so
Right.
dogs are primal players, right? Talk
Yeah.
about permission slips. Animals are fantastic permission slips.
So this is
Um,
TJ and Bailey, and they have a business called the Playful Revolution, and
Hey,
they're
guys.
like talking about play and all of the like scientific research around play for so many different things. But it made me think of you with surfing and how like
I got to play for a living.
that's awesome.
well, I was more thinking of like
That's the
how
best
you
way it
think
could
that
be.
like exercising is so dumb because you're like, why don't people just go and surf?
Yeah,
and
so I
play?
call it a play out, not a workout.
Yes,
So I don't,
awesome.
my whole life, I pretty much was like a professional athlete. And then instead of going to the gym and working out for it, I would just go surf more and find things to play.
Yeah,
And then even now, I still feel like I'm still a young kid, just in an older body because my life
totally. And
has revolved around playing.
have you found that you're able to integrate your surf body, mind, heart into other tasks?
Everything I do.
Yeah,
Surfing is a moving meditation because it's always
absolutely.
moving. No turn is ever the same. So it
Yes.
gives us this perspective of everything I do wraps back into that mental state. In
And
my
this is what
work,
I
in my job, in my farms, it's all about play.
And this is
Yeah.
what I love talking to people who have strong external practices, right? Because what they do is again, no play is pointless, right? So like when you become a master of the play state, everything is a playground.
So it's a
Everything is a
meditation. Sorry, I don't mean
Exactly.
to interrupt you, but Sam
no,
meditates all the time and I don't
I
meditate.
me
But I
either.
feel like I get the same exact thing out of it when I'm going surfing for 5 hours and I'm just out there
Hmm.
doing my thing. It's a
You
moving
do.
meditation that I don't think of and do a chant, but I breathe through it. I move through it. I have to bring this awareness to myself through it. So
And
there's
actually,
intent.
and again, I love this yin yang right here, right? Where one of the things that gets missed in meditation is that you can't actually learn new skills in meditation. Like it's a place to explore new skills, but it's not a testing ground.
Right.
Versus playscapes are the testing ground of the skills you're meditating for. And so one of the things I love is helping people find those external playgrounds, like those external practices that are ritualistic, that feel spiritual to them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a hobby like surfing.
Harvey, surfing is a way of life.
I understand, but
It's
what I
like farming.
mean, yeah, but what I mean is that as somebody who doesn't have a ton of, when we're talking about play and privilege, and that some people don't have
Right.
the time privilege or the financial privilege for large landscapes of play, which doesn't mean that life itself, you cannot find life playgrounds within the life where brushing your teeth becomes a playground. Like, where can you become mentally engaged or emotionally engaged or physically engaged in one thing every single day as a playground, as an external, like you find something
All of your
external.
mundane stuff, turning it into play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Where say you find something, we were just talking about like habit stacking, like adding play, right? And again, this place where some people are most find their in like their on ramp to play, their portal through mind play, right? Like systems thinking the way you do, Sam, or heart play, but you also have a lot of heart play in your life in the way you love the land. But you also have a lot of body play in the way that you move through the land, right? So like when you go on a walk, right? It can be like a systems tracking, right? It can be jumping from rocks to rocks. It can be challenging yourself to move differently. It can be challenging it to feel the heart of the walk differently, to walk like your dogs, right? To wag your tail, right?
actually got to go. I got people waiting on me, but I was just trying to immerse myself in listening to what you guys were saying for a moment.
I didn't want to lock you
She
into
probably
something.
wanted to relate it back to me because she knows you hear these guys with this Peter Pan syndrome. That's not me, but I've been playing my whole life on the good, maybe the good side of the Peter Pan side of things is that I've been able, I'm still skateboarding. I'm still
God, I
kite
wish I had a whole other podcast to
surfing.
talk to you, because there's also this entire dynamic around, yes, there's the Peter Pan syndrome, and there is the gender reality that men retain their playfulness more than women.
Where women tend to be like moms and they have
Right,
to
go into that
And
mindset.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating conversation, and I'm sorry I got other play I got
it's
to
okay.
do.
I'll bring you on our podcast in a couple months.
Yeah, so I just dressed all my girls that work for me up in bee suits and harvested honey and
nice.
made little games out of half of what we do. So
Awesome.
we have this playscape going on at the
Yeah.
farm. The farms are like breathtakingly beautiful. Well, I'm
Yeah.
out weeding, and Sam will tell you I'm out playing in the yard.
I was thinking about how you always like not yell, but like you tell the interns they can't go and listen to podcasts while they're gardening. They have to be mentally engaged in the process of watering, and that kind
You
of makes
have
me
to be
think of
present, or else you really can't water.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or a lot of the things that we're doing, if we're weeding, if they just put their headphones on somewhere, they're more there than they are on the task.
Mhm.
And when they can just get into the task and not need that, I find that's a meditative state, like a moving meditation versus
Disconnect. Yeah, it's an alignment of
something
mind
that's
and body.
premeditated. Yeah, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
something. Oh, thank you, ladies. Pleasure to meet
Thank
you.
you. Yeah,
Fascinating.
nice to meet
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, I'd love to do your podcast or do anything with you guys.
Yeah.
Anything
I
Sam's
want to
attached.
I want to
Always
interview
awesomeness.
players. I want to
Okay,
interview
player.
players so that people can understand the relevance of taking an external practice and integrating it in to their like into that practice of
So
abundance.
I've never actually had a job in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't even get a driver's license probably till I was in my 40s. My whole life has revolved around just in game playing from when I was a child, and now I'm in my 50s and I'm still playing. And I feel really lucky about that. So I'd probably be a good candidate for that, just for food for thought with that.
I
I have
love talking to people
stories.
Love
about
it.
play.
Aloha, you guys. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Me too.
So as a closer, I would say, first of all, I freaking love that. But I get in this place where, like, when, yes, habit stacking, find something you're already doing on a daily basis and challenge yourself to think differently, feel differently, or move differently during it.
And see how it goes. And then do that intentionality of checking in how you're feeling, right? You may hate jumping from rock to rock on your walk, but you might love a hunt to find the best rock, right? And what's the definition of the best rock you can find on your walk? And it doesn't have to be, this is an internal game, right? It doesn't have to be, I like saying that people don't know I'm playing when I'm playing, right?
Now I'm imagining you guys doing like a 30-day like where people can like opt in via email and every day you're giving them like a little tiny play practice and that's
Oh,
like the
it's so funny.
prompted
We're actually
reminder.
creating that right now.
Oh, you are perfect.
We are. Well, we're
I'm like,
practicing
how do
about
I remember doing this? If you guys email me, that would be great. Thank you. Or because you were talking about giving your body over to play for your like play partner or making a day where you're just being yes and that's something where I could actually because I use a digital calendar a ton because I don't remember anything. But if it's on my digital calendar, then I can remember something. So
Interesting.
those are my ideas.
Oh, I love the idea of a calendar somebody could integrate into their calendar and have a
I wasn't even thinking
expanded.
you guys doing it. That would be
Oh,
really
that makes
cool.
me really think I love the idea of building a like subscription calendar that like a 30-day subscription calendar that like integrates into somebody's already existing Google Calendar. All right. Bye guys. This was delightful.
Yeah, this is so great.
We can just going and
Oh
keep
my gosh,
going.
yeah, we have to stop. We're over 2 hours. We gotta stop there. So how can people work with you? Where can people take the next step? Where can they find you online? All of those things.
We love to collaborate, right? We love to collaborate. We've got a bunch of different kind of little offerings. We're newer in our work. We're only like a little over a year old. So we have some offerings on our website that we would love for you to check out. We also love to collaborate. We've got workshops that we can just bring immediately to you and to your people. We also have workshops that we would love to create for you. And what else we got, Bailey?
You can also just start to get our information on our website at theplayfulrevolution.com or on Instagram at theplayfulrevolution and our soon to be podcast that'll be launching soon, The Play Rebels. And so by joining
When
us,
does that come out?
We have the first 5
When
episodes
we press
recorded,
go.
and so we are hoping in the month of March is when it's going to come out.
Oh, so it's by the time this is out, it's probably there.
Hopefully, yeah, we'll see.
Oh, thank you guys so much for coming on. This has been so much fun, hence why I couldn't stop recording. And sorry for taking your entire day, but this has been so useful, so far-reaching, and I can't wait for all of us to play.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us, Sam.
Yes. Oof.
Bye, everyone.